surely most people thought is AI is going to transform especially blue collar work. And it turns out that with the advancements of generative AI and, the chat GPT, the iPhone moment of AI enabling this technology for so many folks, that actually white collar workers are more affected at this point.
Welcome to AI Insights, tomorrow's Tech Today, where we explore the frontiers of general AI. I'm your host, Tommy Siebenhühner, and today I'm honored to have a true visionary in the realm of artificial intelligence and emerging technologies on our podcast, Rene Schulte. Known as a creative developer, thought leader, and digital content creator, Rene's passion for technology has not only earned him a spot on Forbes, but also invitations as an expert to global TV stations and a consistent presence as a keynote speaker and panelist at prestigious conferences worldwide. Living in Germany with his wife and their 5 children, Rene embodies the balance between pioneering technological advancements and nurturing a rich personal life. Today, we are going to explore Rene's insights and visions for the future of artificial intelligence. So, let's get started and dive into the mind of one of the leading figures in the world of technology.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Tommy. Well, that was quite the introduction here. So thanks for the great words there.
Given your role at Reply and your advisory work with clients globally, Rene, what industries do you believe will be most transformed by AI in the next decade, and what societal impacts should we anticipate?
Yeah, well, that's a quick answer. All of them. Like all industries, there's not a single industry where I don't see any impact of AI. But obviously, that's a little bit too short of an answer. I think where we will see the most significant impact initially is a lot of the what in American English you call people that work in a factory like blue collar workers, and that work in an office you call them white collar workers. And the interesting thing is actually a lot of folks thought, oh yeah, AI, this is going to, continue the automation, like the Industrial Revolution, as you know, like, let's say 150 years or a little bit more when it started. It basically transformed the work of many people in factories, mainly also to automation. And we had multiple stages of this, and then we call Industrial Revolution. I don't know, I lost count. Maybe we're in Industrial Revolution V5 now or whatever it is. But surely most people thought is AI is going to transform especially blue collar work. And it turns out that with the advancements of generative AI and, the chat GPT, the iPhone moment of AI enabling this technology for so many folks, that actually white collar workers are more affected at this point than blue collar workers. And that is mainly because there's also a thing called the Moravec's paradox, which basically describes that low cognitive functions are easy for us humans, but are very hard for robots. So here's an example. Think about if you're standing up from a chair or you're sitting down on a chair. That's very easy for you as a human, right? You don't even think about it, but super, super hard for a robot because you need a lot of balance and a lot of stuff. And that's the Moravec's paradox, yep. Right? And at the same time, these high cognitive functions, like these, I don't know, like you give a picture of, let's say, 2,000 people with their faces looking into the camera. Like for you as a human, it would take quite a while to identify all of them, right? But if you have an AI system, it's done in less than a second, right? And so these high cognitive functions are very good with AI. And that's the Moravec's paradox, that we have this kind of a balance in between there. And the aspect is really interesting that it's actually with the advantage of large language models and generative AI that we're seeing, like I said, the white collar workers mainly affected. And that's also, since you also asked about the societal challenges, obviously that's also going to be very impactful for society. And recently, Klarna, which might be known actually, but if you don't know, Klarna is a payment processing service. So basically, when you go to an online shop, in most online shops, you can select also Klarna, or PayPal or credit card or whatever you want to pay for. Anyhow, Klarna released a blog post beginning of March, and basically what they said in that blog post is is a reference, a case study they did for an AI assistant they implemented at Klarna for customer
Mm-hmm.
inquiries, right? So as you can imagine, these payment processors, they get a lot of customer inquiries every day. And, this is mainly handled by human agents, but they developed a system thanks to OpenAI's GPT APIs. And they haven't written exactly from the technical standpoint how they did it, but I think it's an agent system because the results they mention are incredible. Long story short, here are the facts. They tested it for 1 month, and in 1 month, this AI customer inquiry assistant managed two-thirds of customer inquiries that Klarna gets. And this is the equivalent of 700 full-time employee
Wow, that's a
agents.
lot indeed. Yeah.
Well, this is crazy. And here the crazy part is actually this. It's not just faster, which we would expect,
Mm-hmm.
right? Instead of 11 minutes on average, it's 3 minutes. But guess what? It is more accurate. It is 25, they have 25% less returns on requests. And so it's more accurate, it's faster, and they're estimating it will be a 40 million. I don't know if they announced euro or US dollars, but they said a 40 million profit gain, which
Wow,
in the end
that's
is a
amazing.
cost
That's
saving.
amazing indeed. Yeah.
That's an amazing case, but the societal implications are huge, right? If you scale this out, and obviously, like call centers and other industries affected, but also translators and all of that. That's the first that are hugely impacted, but the rest will also get a lot of impact. All the rest of the jobs, but also I don't know, like any office work in the end. But we should look at our jobs as a sum of multiple tasks and not just a single task. And so we can get AI augmentation for these tasks, but also at the same time, for folks that their main job is basically a call center agent and they will get replaced with this AI. Of course, we have to think about like how can we, catch these people so that they don't fall through the net, but they actually also have a chance to maybe reskill, become a prompt engineer or whatever. I don't know, but surely something needs to happen. And I think that's also important that we will see some regulation. I don't know how strong of a regulation we will need, but surely there is some regulation required, in particular when it comes to these job market transformations. Because to be very clear, we have seen job transformations always. I mentioned industrial revolution. Like a lot of things have changed. For example, like a horseshoe maker, right? You still have horseshoe makers, a
Mm-hmm.
few, but probably not as much as you had like 200 years ago. And so these transformations happen all the time. But here's the big difference. The big difference these days is it happened over the course of multiple generations in the past, but now it's happening within a generation, within, like, let's say 5 years or less, right? And so that's of course a much bigger impact than if you change this over the course of, let's say, 50 years or something. And so that's seriously, we seriously need some some things that need to happen to make sure we don't leave people behind.
Rene, you mentioned regulation, and so this is one topic concerning AI that is very current. What is your take on regulation of AI? Does it need to be regulated? Should it be all open? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm a little bit torn between the two camps here, right? So on the one side, you have the camp of the what some folks call the AI doomers that always say, "Oh, AI is more dangerous than nuclear weapons,"
Skynet,
and it's so
Skynet. Yeah.
dangerous. Yes, Skynet. And I mean, a lot of folks, that got their brain kind of trained on a lot of science fiction movies, right? Like Terminator,
Mm.
Skynet, whatever, and they always think like, "Oh yeah, this is like." And so you have this camp, and then on the other side, you also have the camp that says, like, well, I don't care about it. We just go, and that's the course of the world, and people need to adapt, and so on. I'm in between it. I'm on the side of, okay, surely we need to make innovation happen. And if I look at the EU, the European Union's AI Act, that still needs to be signed by all the member states. So it's not done yet. But what I see there's some good points in it, but also some points which are concerning. Because we should make sure that also in Europe we keep ahead with innovation. And that has to basically enable us to do research with large language models. And And an earlier version of the EU AI Act, they basically had these kind of models labeled as dangerous models because they're so big and you don't have transparency and a lot of these kind of things. But in the end, I mean, that's also you cannot. What they also wanted to have is that vendors of these large language models provide the sources of their training data, which is pretty much impossible if you look at how they are trained. They're using Common Crawl data set with petabytes of internet data. So good luck with giving the sources all of that. Um, but that's obviously also not the answer that we should not regulate. I think there needs to be some regulation, and I think in particular that we need to have some regulation about the impactness of the AI that will make a huge job transformations happen. Um, Maybe some of these companies that implement those, maybe they should set up a fund where they all contribute to, and money out of this can then be used to reskill people. I don't know, something like this. Um, but I'm also very much favorable of open source and open weight models. That's actually a better term instead of open source, because if you look at these models, the source code is not that much. The whole brain is the weights, right? The trained data. And so these open weight models like Meta's Llama in particular, they changed last year in 2023. They changed pretty much the whole landscape and pushed forward for a lot of innovation. And they are also unconstrained. There's no censoring with these models. You can put your own constraints on it. You can run them on premises, and you're not relying on cloud vendors. Obviously, you get a lot of benefits if you're choosing cloud vendors, right? Like scalability, enterprise security, and what have you. But the good part is it's not just the open AIs of the world or the Googles that make these amazing models, but a lot of also smaller companies were enabled. And some of those are in Europe. One to particularly point out is Mistral. They made a great model. They're out of Paris, and amazing research happening there. And so what I'm trying to say is we got to make sure there's some regulation to align AI with human values, the alignment problem, that we align it with human values, that it's benefiting us as humanity. At the same time, we also got to make sure we're not over-regulating to make things like Mistral and other innovation happening, because otherwise, the rest of the world will just take the stage.
Hmm. Talking about taking the stage. So you were also very much involved, and we together actually, in the spatial computing COP, right? And one awesome aspect of spatial computing, and the subcategory metaverse is that a lot of there is decentralized. Now, taking that topic over to AI, do you think that AI is going to be more or less, a centralized topic with all the big players who have the money to train their models? That are they going to take the stage only, or is this going to be a decentralized world where you and I maybe with even little computing power can also train AIs in the future?
Yeah, it's a very good point. And yeah, at the moment, unfortunately, it's mainly the big cloud vendors and the big companies that have the budget to buy NVIDIA graphics cards for billions of US
Mm.
dollars. I'm not sure if you saw the announcement from Zuckerberg from Meta, but he said like the investments they're going to do into H100s, these big graphics stacks where they're used for training AI models. It's significant. It's billions of US dollars. And so, yeah, unfortunately, that's the scarcity of GPU of computing resources is a big limitation actually to compete there. But the good news is you can also, like Mistral, for example, I think they used something like you just mentioned, like more of a decentralized effort where everyone can contribute a little bit. But at the end, you basically need a huge data center where you can centralize all the training. But also a good aspect is, for example, in Italy, and I think also in other European countries, there is some public institutions or some research facilities that have also larger compute arrays where you, as a researcher, for example, can rent computing time and so on it, right? Yeah, this is really cool. And there's something happening also with other chips that are coming out. There was just a company that released a new chip for inference of large language models, not for training, but for the execution side of things, which is 10 times more faster and uses less resources because it's optimized for these workloads. I also hear from other, semiconductor manufacturers big ones that were a little bit left behind by the presence of Nvidia, that they're going to catch up massively this year. Also, you see, all the big tech companies like Apple, Samsung, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, they all are working on their own AI chips. And so I think the dominance on Nvidia will get a little bit less. They will still be the big top one player, but it might get a little bit less this year, which is also a good message because it will enable a lot of folks to leverage this technology to train their models.
Mm-hmm. Rene, you already mentioned Klarna and their use case of AI and chatbots that they integrated there, which had a huge impact, right? Immediate impact on their call center support. Could you share some of the most exciting projects or applications of AI and related technologies you've been involved with, particularly those that have had a tangible impact on real world scenarios?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So I'm going to share just a few of those cases that we developed at Reply with various clients. One of those, for example, is what we did a lot. It's not the super fancy. I will tell you some fancy ones, or maybe let's start with this one. Marazzi tiles. This is a great one. A lot of us have used diffusion models in the past, right? Like a text to image model, where we can basically give it a text prompt and then it will generate an image. DALL-E, Stable Diffusion, Midjourney, and what have you. So we were approached by this tile manufacturer that makes floor and wall tiles, the things you might have in your bathroom, that they wanted to have Gen AI patterns on these tiles. And so used Stable Diffusion. Unfortunately, they don't really look like tile patterns, right? And so what they wanted to have is, and then that's what we did in the end, we fine-tuned that model, the Stable Diffusion one, to actually, you can still prompt it, but it will still look like a marble texture. So you can say, I want to have a cherry blossom tree in my marble texture. So you get a nice marble texture, and then inside you see very subtle, a little like a cherry blossoms on a tree and what have you, right? So this is I think a great example because it's using these diffusion models, these image generation models, for a little bit more. Um, Also, an interesting one is the digital human stuff we're doing. So we're building these digital humans, which you can imagine these are virtual representations or visual representations of an AI. So instead of having just a text prompt or maybe an audio input output interface where you can talk to with speech detection and speech synthesis, you can also have a visual representation like a 3D figure. And they can also be AI generated, but what we're also doing is a lot of 3D generation. And so we, for example, recreated with the help of that, we recreated a historical figure, Luigi Einaudi.
Mm-hmm.
And Luigi Einaudi was the second president of Italy and also a famous economics expert. And so we worked together with the Luigi Einaudi Foundation to bring him back to life as a digital human. And now you can go to the Luigi Einaudi Foundation website and have a conversation with him. And you see like his avatar, his character as a 3D model. And then we also kind of fine-tuned and augmented with RAG, retrieval augmented generation. We took basically his papers, his books, and so on, and transformed this into embeddings so you can inject this into a large language model. What that means in the end is you can have a conversation with Luigi Einaudi, and his knowledge, his answers will be grounded in his research and all of this. So you can have a fantastic conversation with him about economics topics, right? And this is also a form of embodied AI, right? It's like embodiment of AI means you take these AI models, these systems, and bring them to for example, physical entity like robotic systems, right? But you can also do digital embodiment. Now, that's what digital humans are. It's a digital embodiment of an AI. And these are just two examples. I could also mention a few more. We're also doing a lot of impactful work with AI-powered software development, basically building multi-agent system where you have not just one large language model, but multiple large language model. And each of these LLMs has a different role, right? One is the product owner, another one is the QA analyst, the third one is the developer, and so on and so forth. And these roles, they work together on a broader task. Like, let's say you get requirements from your customer and you want to turn this into code, right? There's multiple steps involved, and these agents work collaboratively together to solve the broader task by breaking it down into smaller ones. And so that is impactful work we're also doing. And then also might sound boring, but that's still quite a bit of bread and butter, is like building in-house chat GPTs for enterprise clients, because a lot of people might not know, but if you well, you surely know, and maybe the most of the listeners here will know, but if you input any data on the public ChatGPT website, there's a little disclaimer that they might use the data for improving the training. And it turns out there was a study that 11% of employee data they input into ChatGPT is confidential data. And so what a lot of companies did is they blocked in the intranet, they blocked, chat.openai.com. So folks cannot reach it. That's a challenge because it's a productivity boost. And so what we also developed for many customers is basically in-house ChatGPT, a front end, and then the backend still uses the GPT-4 model via, for example, Azure OpenAI services, which they guarantee you that your requests run in a sandbox. It's not mixed with others. They also guarantee you the highest security and enterprise standards. Plus, Microsoft also has the copyright commitment, what I'm basically saying, if someone gets sued because, I don't know, of regulation of, the training data that's used in this large language model, if someone, does sue someone, Microsoft will basically stand up for it and will go to the court for you, because you're using their service, right? And so that's just a few examples. There's many, many
The
more.
last case that you mentioned, Rene, I find it to be very interesting because, obviously data security is a huge topic, right? A lot of companies are working with confidential data, which they don't want to prompt into open models like ChatGPT. And now with such a local integration, of a large language model, how long does it take to set something up like that? Roughly, how long does it take?
Yeah, these kind of in-house chat GPTs, I mean, these are small effort. You can get them for low money, if you will. I might take a few weeks only, and the majority of the time is basically getting the branding and all of that stuff in. But the technology is there basically. In the end, you build a front end for an API,
Mm-hmm.
right? So easy, and you have it then in a secure and enterprise ready infrastructure.
Okay. It's unfortunate that this is an audio only podcast because if it would also be video, then our audience could see what I'm seeing. You actually have like a training shirt on, a sweatshirt on that says MVP, and I want to get to this point. So you've actually been honored with the Microsoft MVP award for 14 years, for all the community work you've done. What advice would you give to young technologists aspiring to make a mark in the fields of AI and emerging technologies?
Yeah. Thanks. So yeah, MVP, typical American wording. It's the most valuable professional. It's an award provided by Microsoft for independent experts that share knowledge. And like you said, I've been doing this for quite a while now. Of course, I changed my focus in technologies over the years, so I changed MVP categories. But yeah, fantastic program by Microsoft, but also AWS has the ambassadors, and you have it with all the big vendors. But basically, I do a lot of conference talks, a lot of social media sharing. So if you want to connect on LinkedIn, you will probably also get bombarded every day with some content. And so that's a recognition, an award for experts that share the knowledge. And my advice for anyone that either wants to become an MVP or just have a good career and in the field of AI and emerging technologies, I would say be yourself first of all. Like, don't play anyone. Be yourself and find your niche and passion. And that's an important aspect. Is like the passion is the most important thing. You gotta love this. If it's for you another job and you just think in these categories, oh, that's another work and so on, and you don't have any passion, you don't have any fire for the topic, well, then it might not be the right fit, because you gotta love what you do, and then you will excel in it. And of course, it's not just this, and it's also hard work. Work hard. Like, you gotta work hard. Like, nothing falls out of the sky, and that's always important. Make sure to constantly learn and to embrace this new technology. Right. That's also my message I give usually in these presentations at the end, is like, people should not be worried too much about all this stuff. Things will get solved. But one thing they should worry about is like getting left behind when they ignore these modern novel AI technologies and tools. And so that's something you definitely gotta work with, right? You gotta embrace these tools and use them to benefit your company and the benefit, of course, for yourself. But yeah, that's an important aspect. So try it out, test it out, be yourself, find your niche, and find your passion most importantly, and then work
Mm-hmm.
hard.
And yeah, I like to ask this question to my interview partners because I think it gives a lot of value to our audience. Are there any, I don't know, podcasts that you listen to, any blogs that you read, on a repeating basis about AI that you think, are worth sharing with our audience?
I can definitely recommend Matt Wolf on YouTube. Amazing guy. Um, like he's a YouTuber in the end that makes every few days videos about the latest news in AI and does it very well because he also tries out these new technologies, tools, services, whatever, and makes some great videos. So definitely, that's the one I would highly recommend. And then my other source is obviously also social media. I'm on Twitter or X these days since I don't know 16 years, whatever, like pretty much since the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, and have also an interesting network where I get a lot of news from that actually, and but it takes a while. You gotta build your network first, and then because otherwise there's also a lot of crap on these platforms, obviously, and but there's also very good content, right? And so it's a very important source of information. Yeah, what else? Yeah, definitely the social media aspect. I think this is also a lot where I see many things and colleagues. Also tribal knowledge. We have our teams where a lot of folks share new stuff, and that's also a great source.
Awesome. Thank you. So now that we're surely but slowly approaching the end of this podcast episode, let's again look ahead. Rene, what are the next big projects of or areas of research you're excited about in the realm of AI and emerging technologies? And how do you stay ahead in such rapidly evolving fields? I mean, you've already talked a little bit about the sources that you might view that you talk to colleagues. Is there anything else?
Yeah, well, hard work in the end. Again, it's like working long days, and when there's new stuff out, I gotta read it, right? It's like always this kind of thing. But yeah, I mean that's what I said is like different sources, and then filtering out what's good and what's not, and of course that comes also with experience. But what am I seeing? What am I excited about that will happen in the field? Well, my kind of tagline for a few talks was 2023 brought us the brains with large language models. Obviously, that's an oversimplification because these are not factual search engines, these LLMs, but pattern spotting engines that find the next best match in a sequence. But let's say you have quite a solid knowledge base, especially if you're using grounding, RAG, and so on. So 2023 brought us the brains with LLMs. 2024 brings us the emotions and artificial emotional intelligence with effective computing. So not effective, but affective computing. And effective computing is a field of research which is focusing on analyzing the kind of emotions of a human and also simulating these affects. And that's some pretty cool stuff. I mentioned the digital human, for example. Now think about this digital human is not just knowledgeable in the field, but it also has a emotional component to it. So it can understand like what is your tonality, what are you saying in the conversation, and maybe also how's your or your mimics looking like, and so on, right? What's your emotional state, and then it can react accordingly and also be more empathetic, and that's a big trend we are following for sure and are working on in our research area. And another aspect is, of course, also the embodiment of AI. Like I said, we have digital embodiment with these digital humans that are now getting emotions, and also physical embodiment in the form of robotics. And for example, you can even have humanoid robots. That's also an area we're investing in, and getting also these kind of personality models for effective computing also on these robots in the end. But another thing is also using like task-based robots, like we're partners with Boston Dynamics, Spot, and also other robotics companies. Using those also with embodiment and having actually multiple of those, and then having a multi-agent system that can actually orchestrate these robots with each other and so on. So that's a lot of interesting stuff happening. But what I'm most excited about is surely, 2024. Let's bring in the emotions for these AI systems, in a form. And yeah, we will see some amazing stuff this year, I'm sure. Also, when you look at the whole field of diffusion models and the kind of image generation. I mean, look at you. Everyone saw OpenAI Sora announcement, right? And these quality of videos, like this is hugely transformational for any content related industry, production, all of that stuff. I mean, this is so impactful with these photorealistic videos. And the next step, obviously, after 2D comes 3D, right? Like 3D models. And there's some impressive research already happening. The models, though, that are generated from text to 3D models or image to 3D is another form, are okay, but not super great at this point. But I'm pretty sure also by the end of this year, we will see photorealistic quality there in a production ready status. And yeah, rapid involvement, I think, is going to happen.
Rene, thank you for your time, for all the AI insights that you shared with us. And I also want to take the chance and say thank you for your thought leadership and inspiration that you are giving to us colleagues within Reply. Have a great day, Rene, and talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me. Bye bye.